people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Some recent quotes from Savannah Marshall, newly crowned undisputed super middleweight champion, who says, "Boxing is my main priority. MMA is just a little adventure. There's just not enough to do, not enough fighters, not enough opportunity at super middleweight, even for an undisputed champion to keep busy all year round and to work towards big fights. Savannah already had hers. I've boxed her in the ring, her being Clarissa Shields, and now I'm chasing her to another sport," Marshall told Sky Sports News. She said something along the lines of, "I hate you, but I love you." It's one of those things. I bet she's sick of me right now. Even taking Clarissa out of the equation, the opportunity to do the deal with PFL is just too good for me to miss, Marshall admits. The risk of entering in a different sport could certainly backfire. It could go either way. I could really take to it and take the PFL world by storm, or in a year's time I could be sat here thinking, what on earth did I do that for? Face all smashed up. But you only live once, Marshall said. Savannah does have a mandatory challenger in the queue, Jade Green, from right here in the US of A, a hard puncher, a high-risk, low-reward opponent. There are quite a few boxers that transitioned over. You had Holly Holm, obviously Conor McGregor. His fundamentals were boxing, and when you not just watch but actually look and take note, you can actually see who's got those boxing fundamentals, said Savannah Marshall. Savannah, who does have a mandatory challenger in the queue, but a mandatory challenger that does not make for a high-profile fight, albeit an entertaining one. If you're Savannah and you've already been there and done that with two of the bigger names at the weight, relatively speaking. Two of the bigger names in Clarissa Shields, her longtime rival, and Franchone Cruz. If you've already been there and done that with them, there's not that much in it for you when it comes to a Green fight, a Jade Green fight, the mandatory challenger by way of the World Boxing Council, and unless I'm mistaken, one or two other alphabet organizations. Now, don't misunderstand me. I would prefer to see Savannah Marshall fighting Jade Green than see her experimenting in the octagon. I am not a fan of these crossovers. Savannah says, "I'll be focusing on the boxing when I'm boxing, and then when I'm not boxing, I'll be focusing on this." Full-time, Marshall said. "Boxing's my main priority. This is just a little adventure. I won't be boxing till next year, and then I've got mandatories and things like that. So it's all geared around boxing. So hopefully back in the ring early next year, and then potentially in the summer. With a mandatory challenger waiting in the queue, Savannah Marshall is sitting out what remains of this year due to a reported injury. An injury that seems to have come at an opportune time for Savannah, but a not-so-opportune time for Jadegia. I love Savannah Marshall. I'm not going to apologize for that. But I don't actually believe she's injured. I believe she's spending what remains of this year dabbling in the world of mixed martial arts, training, preparing for her MMA debut. That's what I think. I think that Jade Green is a capable and dangerous enough boxer that they didn't want to roll the dice with her for what remains of this year. But she is Savannah's mandatory challenger, so she has to be dealt with. Wait, I see it. If it takes Savannah too long to come back, too long to return, the green belt, or maybe one of the other belts, it might go to Jadeja, while Savannah dabbles in the world of mixed martial arts. And to Savannah, the Jadeja Green fight ain't that big a fight, but to Jadeja, it is. To Jadeja, it is a high-profile fight. The biggest and most high-profile fight she will have ever been in. So far, two of the biggest names, if not the two biggest names, at or around these weights are going over to the PFL. Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. Jadeja likely won't get a fight with them in the near future. So where does that leave Jadeja? Well, if Savannah's out too long doing the PFL thing, The green belt might go to Jadeja, though I'm sure Jadeja doesn't just want the green belt. She wants the fight. The fight with Savannah, the opportunity to fight on that kind of a stage. The silver lining for Jadeja is I don't think she's going to spend the next couple of weeks and months knitting sweaters waiting by the phone. She is promoted by most valuable promotions, so they'll find her someone to fight. Well, it won't be Savannah and it won't be Clarissa. Won't be Hannah Gabriel. She may end up serving a ban due to a banned substance found in her system. So perhaps they can stage a fight with Franchon Cruz, the former undisputed champion, that if they can't get Savannah in the ring, maybe they can get the woman she beat. Woman she just beat, Franchon Cruz. For one or two of the alphabet titles at super middleweight, Jadeja, she's not in this alone. She's not up the creek without a paddle. She does have most valuable promotions behind her. So they can make something happen in the absence of Savannah. As far as Savannah, if you're Savannah Marshall, and you've already been there and done that with Clarissa Shields and Franchon Cruz, two of the bigger, more established names at this weight, a Jadeja Green fight's gonna seem like small potatoes. And perhaps that's why she's deciding to explore the sport of mixed martial arts. There's just not enough substance, not enough fighters, and not enough big fights at 168. Not enough money. I'm not a fan of these crossovers, but I understand Savannah's reasoning. If the people at the PFL are willing to pay her interesting sums of money to experiment in their sport, have at them.
That's what we're training towards. It's just, whether the TV can put that fight on and put that out within a time frame, and if not, then we will exercise it, straight away afterwards. So it's just, but at the end of the day, there's one person that's going out there selling tickets and putting on great shows fight after fight, and that's Chris Billam-Smith, who's now the world champion. Lawrence has had a couple of not so good performances, and he blows hot and cold and stuff. So if the TV's criticising the fight, then it's nothing to do with our sake for sure.
Therein lies the dilemma. Therein lies the fundamental problem. Ahead of the Chris Billam-Smith fight, Lawrence Okolie did have a rematch clause incorporated into the contract, and he has so exercised that rematch clause now that he's lost the WBO title. But the problem is, irrespective of his legal right to a rematch, who actually wants to see it? What is the commercial value of Okolie versus Billam-Smith 2? What's it going to take to pay the fighters to get them in the ring with each other? What kind of money do they want? Versus what kind of money the fight is actually worth. I remember all those months ago when Lawrence Okolie was attempting to part ways with Matchroom, who helped to get him to that WBO title. The narrative was Big Bad Eddie, Big Cheap Eddie. That because little Lawrence felt undervalued and little Lawrence wanted more money. And because Eddie Hearn wouldn't give it to him, because Eddie Hearn was honest about it. Lawrence Okolie ain't worth but so much commercially. We're not talking about intrinsic value or spiritual currency. We're talking about actual currency in the real world. Lawrence ain't a big ticket seller, and he ain't the most fun guy to watch. But Lawrence, he still wanted more money. Eddie wasn't going to give it to him. Boxer did. Nuances and legalese aside, he eventually ends up going over there just to end up being the B-side, just to end up being the away fighter against Chris Billam-Smith. And now what's the story? The story is the network doesn't really want to put it on. The rematch. You had all these bleeding hearts chastising Eddie because that's the trendy thing to do these days without much critical thinking skills, without much thought. That Lawrence Okolie, he's not a big ticket seller, he's not a fun guy to watch. He goes over to Boxer. Right. He fights Chris Billam-Smith in Chris Billam-Smith's neck of the woods. Right. You're telling me that after all that, you ended up being the away fighter. You lose. And even though you have a rematch clause, the platform that you were fighting so hard to get back on doesn't even want to put on your fight. What did I tell you? This narrative that nobody's watching DAZN and you won't get any eyes on your fights by fighting on that platform. Need I remind you, most of Lawrence Okolie's fights were on Sky Sports. Most of those fights were on Sky. And in spite of that, he didn't turn out to be a superstar, so maybe platforms weren't the issue. I mean, look, you're back on Sky now. He's had two fights since parting ways with Matchroom. The first one under the Boxer banner, that was a stinker. People were literally walking out. It was the David Light fight. Follows that up with the CBS fight in Bournemouth, where Lawrence was the away fighter. He loses. What are you supposed to say? I feel like it's a bit of a lazy boxing take. It's a lazy stance to assume that the promoter is always the bad guy, that the promoter is always wrong, when sometimes these fighters and their managers overvalue themselves. They want dollar amounts that don't reflect their commercial appeal, their commercial value. And nobody's in the business of just giving money away or pouring money down the drain to satisfy some overinflated ego.
Some fighter's ego.
Seems to me that Ben Shalom paid through the nose to bring over matchroom fighters over to Boxer, and Lawrence Okolie was one of them. He was willing to pay that fighter more than matchroom was.
He's got to be feeling buyer's remorse.
You paid through the nose to get him, now you got him, and he's your problem.
That rhymes.
Seems like Ben Shalom's sole focus was funneling matchroom fighters over to Boxer without any emphasis on what those boxers are actually worth.
Guy doesn't know what he's doing, man.
The worst thing that could happen to Sky Sports and Boxer now is they end up staging that rematch and Lawrence wins the belt back. That's the worst thing that could happen to them.
I don't envy Ben.
Elsewhere in the cruiserweight division, we know that Badu Jack, 7 months after becoming WBC cruiserweight champion, has so decided to vacate the WBC title to move up in weight yet again up to the men's bridgerweight division. And news out of Poland.
Using sophisticated and secret technologies.
Deciphered a communique from out of Poland detailing Badu Jack's next move. In mid-December, there may be a fight between WBC Bridgerweight champion Lukas Rozanski and the three-weight world champion Badu Jack. Andrzej Blazelinski said in an interview with TVP Sport, "We have an agreement, although we do not have documents for the fight with Badu Jack. According to the latest information, it will probably be mid-December in Saudi Arabia or one of the neighboring countries," says the president of Knockout Boxing Promotions, a Polish-based outfit, a well-to-do one. "This is the fight we dream about. This is what Lukas, his staff, and the people who support his dream want. Badu Jack is the world champion of 3 divisions, a very famous name, and the salary for this fight for Lukas is more than worthy than any possible fight in Poland. We really want this fight," adds Wasilewski for Rozanski. "It would be the first defense of the title in April after winning it against Alen Babic in his last performance. Jack won a WBC title from Lunga Makabu 7 months ago. His options then became having a rematch with Lunga, because I heard Lunga had a rematch clause, or satisfying his mandatory challenger, Noel Gavor, a high-risk, low-reward guy. If you're Badu Jack and you're in your 40s and you know you're in the twilight years of your career,
None of those fights are big fights, and none of those fights pay all that much.
so he vacates the title, decides he wants to move up in weight one more time to take on Poland's own unbeaten bridgerweight champion, Lukas Rozanski, who really ain't a big name himself, but somebody over there is willing to pay Jack good money to do it. My only question is, since Badu Jack signed the Skills Challenge were the ones who were supposed to be doing the Joshua versus Wilder fight, the Fury versus Usyk fight, that was them. The story out of Saudi is that what they're spending on boxing, how those resources are being allocated, it's under new management, and I don't know here and now what the status of Skills Challenge is. Thus, I don't know what the status of this fight is. They're talking about doing it in December.
I don't know.
It's a dangerous fight for Badu Jack. If you happen to take in the Lukas Rozanski versus Alen Babic fight, you'll realize just how dangerous this fight is for Badu Jack, an aging fighter, an aging former champion.
Lukas Rozanski, he ain't the tallest guy or the longest guy, but he's just a few nose hairs removed from being a full-fledged heavyweight. The bridgerweight limit is 224 pounds.
Bridgerweight division is the WBC's experiment, carving out a lane in between cruiser and heavy.
But by all accounts, what we're talking about is Badu Jack fighting a heavyweight, an unbeaten heavyweight, a knockout puncher.
Credit to Badu Jack for making it past Lunga Makabu, then cruiserweight champion. A strong puncher, but a limited boxer. This, however,
I don't know about this.
this guy's got good form, snappy punches, and good power.
Big palooka, this guy.
Hard to say that the World Boxing Council is having any success with this Bridgerweight division, Lukas Rozanski being its champion, and none of the alphabet organizations, none of the other ones following suit and carving out Bridgerweight lanes of their own.
I think it's been over a year since this division's inception.
Over a year, maybe 2, and it's hard to say that it's gotten off the ground and gotten any momentum, but Lukas,
He is dangerous.
Badu Jack is old.
So, we'll see what happens.
Now, downstairs, all the way down there at lightweight, Shakur Stevenson on how a fight versus Gervonta Davis can happen. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not Tank. He's the big star. He's the pay-per-view star. I can't throw no offers to Tank. Who am I to throw offers to the biggest star in boxing? That would have to be on their part to want to do that. I would love that fight. I think that's the best fight in boxing, and I want to prove to the world who I truly am.
Gervonta Davis' people won't entertain any offers from Shakur Stevenson from Top Rank, though at the same time, they won't make any either.
So, if you're a boxing fan, and this is a fight that you would like to see, you're left at an impasse because Gervonta ain't entertaining no offers for Shakur, but he's not making any.
His longtime trainer Calvin Ford has been putting it out there that he'd like to do a rematch with Isaac Cruz, a rematch that no one is asking for.
Seems a waste of money for Showtime, and a waste of it, a waste of time, to run it back with Isaac Cruz, who he already beat. What would be the point in staging a second fight? But need I remind you, the PBC aren't strangers to staging pointless rematch. They did Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares too, even though no one was asking for it. Wilder versus Ortiz too.
If Gervonta is every inch the star that Shakur and many others make him out to be, the responsibility to do these fights, to finance them, it's on Gervonta. It's not on Shakur. It's not on Bob.
You know, the Vasily-Lomachenko fight, that's not going to happen. After all these years, it's safe to say it'll never go down. Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez have left the weight class. They're campaigning up there at 140 now.
Gervonta's not after them.
Though he's not after Shakur either. And you start to wonder if Gervonta Davis' supporters, his fans, are they even boxing fans? Are they boxing fans at all? Because they seem quite content with what he's doing, letting these fights pass him by.
The illusion of an icon.
Those who put him on a pedestal so desperate for an icon almost feel inconvenienced that other young fighters, other young talented fighters want to fight him, when I thought that's what we were here for. I thought we were here for the fights.
How long are they going to keep making excuses for this guy?
I think they would prefer to keep making excuses for him than see how these fights play out. I think they're afraid of what would happen. I mean, look at what happened with Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford. All that shit talk for all those years.
You think they want to go through that again?
What happened to Deontay Wilder at the hands of Tyson Fury? What happened to Stephen Fulton at the hands of Naoya Inoue? And what just happened to Errol Spence Jr. at the hands of Terrence Crawford? Do you think, underneath it all, they want to see Gervonta end up like those guys?
No.
They're afraid of what would happen.
They'd rather not find out.
Gervonta's supporters would rather not know what would happen if you put him in the ring with a Devin Haney or you put him in a ring with a Shakur Stevenson. They'd rather not know.
If he's the big box office draw, if he's the star, then it's on him to make it happen because no one's expecting him to cross over to ESPN.
No one's expecting him to leave Showtime. No one's expecting him to entertain offers from Top Rank, from Matchroom. I mean, he hasn't in the past. Why would he start now?
He's the big star, but doesn't that then mean that the ball is in his court?
Don't expect public pressure from his supporters, his fans. Don't expect them to pressure him to fight these fighters. I told you, they'd rather not know.
They'd rather he stay in a bubble.
Though without another Ryan Garcia kind of deal, to where the guy's limited enough that you can beat him, but popular enough that you can make money.
Without another one of those, what is he going to do?
You won't do with Isaac again what you did with Ryan.
Or Frank Martin.
Or any of those guys that are on that side now. I don't expect that he's going to fight Shakur. But if he's not, what is he going to do? Who is he going to fight?
For a big box office fight.